Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz pianist Aaron Diehl. We had to catch up with him about his latest Mack Aveneue album, 2020's Vagabond. This brilliant new offering is very much so a jazz recording, and it pays homage to the forbearers like Art Tatum, Mary Lou Williams, Ahmad Jamal, Roland, Hanna, and the great John Lewis. It also features his interpretation of a tune from his friend and mentor, Mr. Philip Glass. It's a grand insight into a wonderful new disc from Aaron. So, please, get to know him and dig this album and interview, my friends.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I really appreciate it.
Joe, it's my pleasure.
So, Vagabond, your brand new CD, it's a wonderful listen, man. There's so much sonically going on with this album. So I just wanted to catch up with you about this project. And first and foremost, I just want to know from you, what was your artistic vision with this project?
Well, I wanted to, first of all, record a trio album, which I hadn't done for some time. I wanted to include a number of originals, either that were relatively new or maybe even ones I had not recorded. And then I also wanted to include some pieces by artists who I feel like I'm highly influenced by, or whose music I love. There are a few pieces, as you know, by there's one piece by Sir Roland Hanna, A Story Often Told, Seldom Heard, and then also John Lewis, Milano. The last track on the album is a piece by Philip Glass, Piano Etude No. 16. And I've had the honor of working with Philip Glass for the last 5 years, and on and off on this Etudes project. It's been a real pleasure to sort of bring all of my influences, my various influences, together on this album, or the people that I've recently been associated with and admired, and also, you know, over the course of my development as an artist.
You know, the one thing that's very fortunate about you having the history with Philip Glass is when I look at the names of, you know, Art Tatum and Mary Lou Williams and Ahmad Jamal, names of musicians that have inspired you with this album, you actually have had the chance to be around this person, and I would consider Philip Glass a legend and a luminary. What have you learned from him that's made your playing better, that's influenced the way that you deliver your music?
Carve your own path and believe in your music and what you contribute. I've had a number of conversations with. I remember one time we were watching. It was like, it had to be 3-4 years ago. It's when Lady Gaga did the Super Bowl. I think it was in Houston. She did the halftime show, and we were sitting at a bar in like Virginia or somewhere watching this halftime show. And I was just asking him. A few other pianists too were at the bar, and I was just asking him questions about his career and his collaborations that he's had working in movies, and he's told me some stories about, you know, how his music was rejected, and, you know, how he's just had to have a certain kind of confidence in what he's doing in moving forward. You know, there are people who almost worship Philip Glass, if I dare say, as a deity. And then there's others who absolutely do not like his music. And he's kind of a polarizing figure, I think, in the sort of contemporary classical music world. And I just think being around someone like that who has so much knowledge about music. I mean, he heard Ornette Coleman several times at the Vanguard. John Coltrane, his father was he had a record store in Baltimore, and growing up in Baltimore, he said he heard Charlie Parker through the glass of a club window. He's told me that story. Like, all of his associations with music are just so utterly vast, and he really knows his stuff. And I just have a tremendous amount of respect for somebody like that.
You know, the one thing about listening to this album in particular, and even your other albums, is that your classical background is very evident in what you're doing. So my question to you is this. Do you make any distinction of how you approach your instrument in a jazz setting, or is all of it coming out because it's a part of the way that you've fed the way that your music your music hit has been your whole life?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of been an ongoing debate about, there's a musician who posted something on Facebook some time ago about, the sort of kind of almost condescension of people saying, a musician is classically trained, and there's all kinds of like subtleties that you can go into with that. I mean, I grew up genuinely loving European classical music. I mean, I'm not a concert pianist at all, but I genuinely have loved the music of Bach and of Chopin and of Beethoven. And even though I'm not necessarily playing that repertoire in any strict way or even playing it at all, really, honestly, those influences I think do come out just naturally because those were part of my upbringing just as much as my grandfather was a jazz musician, just as much as Duke Ellington or Oscar Peterson or Horace Silver or any of these people. I simply try to be honest with my music and using my influences and the elements that resonate with me in music. I just try to do that naturally and without any sort of contriving notions.
The one thing about me, when I really wrap my head around an album, it could be called old school now, is I love putting the CD in my chamber and driving for a while and just really soaking it in. And I've had the chance to do that with your album. And I know how it's made me feel. But my question to you is, when someone makes that commitment after they see you live or they order it online or however they get your music and they listen to Vagabond, what do you want them to get from this experience?
I want them. What do I want them to get from there? I simply want them to have an experience, whatever that may be. I hope it's something that's valuable to them. But I want them, of course, to enjoy it. I want it I want them to have some kind of reaction to the music that I'm making. Hopefully, even if it's in sort of a setting where it's at a coffee shop or something. In the background, someone hears it and says, "Oh, wow, that's intriguing. I'd like to listen more to it." I think that's important, especially nowadays where things can easily be put into the background because we're so busy with our day-to-day lives and we have all kinds of technological distractions. I hope it's something that they can sit down with and really soak in and take in, like you say, and listen to it on its own terms.
I know I've really enjoyed it. Aaron, hey, thanks again for taking some time out for Neon Jazz. I love your music, and I really appreciate you opening up and giving us some insight to the album.
Joe, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you some insight into the finest cats in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Aaron for his time, music, and cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.